So you believe that providing weapons, because the White House really has not defined what the scale and scope of their involvement intentions are. What do you think needs to be done here? What would satisfy you?
Well, Martha, I think we have to view this situation in the context of a terribly deteriorating situation in the region. Lebanon is being destabilized. Jordan is overrun with refugees. The fighting is now, the latest estimate of 93,000 people have been massacred. Horrible atrocities are taking place. And the Russians are providing sophisticated weapons such as missiles and airplanes. Hezbollah has sent thousands of fighters. The Iranians have boots on the ground and are supplying weapons. So it's a totally unfair and unbalanced fight. And now the rebels are the freedom fighters. The Syrian National Army are being beaten every place around Syria because of the overwhelming firepower. And air power is really the deciding factor. So you've got to take their air power out of it. You've got to have a safe zone where they can operate, train, and equip. And we've got to turn this thing around. Frankly, anything less than that will just be countered with increased Russian assistance, Iranian assistance, and more Hezbollah fighters into the region. So we've got to change the battlefield situation, and just sending arms, very frankly, although they need them very badly, they need anti-tank and anti-air weapons, is not going to change the situation on the ground, and the massacre goes on.
Right. I mean, hindsight is always 20/20, right? But I mean, a lot of people would feel that if we had done this a lot sooner, and I know that you advocated doing it sooner, that it would have been a clearer ally situation. There's been some Al-Qaeda infiltration into these rebel groups, which is of great concern to a lot of people. Is it too late? And if we go in now, it sounds like we're in deep from what you're saying, if we can hope to achieve the goal. And also tell us what is the ultimate goal here?
Well, our ultimate goal is the removal of Bashar Assad, which the president has articulated many times. And will it be complicated? Will it be difficult? Will it be a mess? Chemical weapons caches are going to have to be secured. And frankly, every day that goes by and we don't get rid of Bashar Assad, it becomes more and more complicated and difficult. But for us to sit by and watch these people being massacred, raped, tortured in the most terrible fashion. Meanwhile, the Russians are all in, Hezbollah is all in, and we're talking about giving them more light weapons. I mean, it's insane. And let me just tell you, it is turning into a regional conflict, not just a conflict within Syria. And the United States has sat by, and the President of the United States, even overruling the recommendations a year ago of his advisors. And let me just mention one thing to you, if I could. The President has said repeatedly, and before the Senate Armed Services Committee, then Secretary of Defense Panetta, and our President, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said, don't worry, Bashar Assad, it's inevitable that he will fall. It's inevitable that he will fall. Now, these are supposed to be our best and smartest people on defense. Does anybody believe today that Bashar Assad is bound to fall? Of course not. It's disgraceful, the conduct of the United States in sitting by and watching this happen. And by the way, none of us want boots on the ground.
Well, you know, that becomes the ultimate question. I mean, based on everything you're saying, I think back to Libya, and we heard the same thing from the president then, that Gaddafi would fall, that it would happen. The French really led the way in that situation. So now what you're describing in terms of the Russian involvement and the Iranian involvement here is a regional conflict. The president has always referred to this as a civil war in Syria. Should we get involved in a civil war in Syria? Now we're talking about a regional conflict that we're going to need our allies engaged in as well. And Great Britain has said, you know, we're not sure that we're in, basically, at this point. So what would you do on that front?
Well, the British want in, and they've stated it everything but openly. The French want in. They long ago said it was clear that Bashar Assad had used chemical weapons. By the way, we've determined that Bashar Assad has killed about 100 to 150 people with chemical weapons. How did he kill the other 93,000?
Good question.
It's just what the president did was he gave them a red line, but gave them a green light to do everything else. And if I sound a little emotional about this, it's because the news out of that country is horrific, and it is about to destabilize and maybe even overthrow the government of Jordan. It is about to cause Lebanon to become a cockpit of sectarian violence, and we have basically passively sat there and done nothing.
All right. Well, I hope you'll come back, Senator, because I want to talk to you about, the reaction of the American people to all of this, and how you do all this without ending up eventually with boots on the ground, but one step at a time here.
Could I just mention really quickly,
Yes.
Bosnia and Kosovo are examples, and the President of the United States has to explain it to the American people.